You'd think the biggest diesel locomotive America ever built would be the future. Longer, louder, more horsepower, more everything. So here's the question. Why didn't it take over U.S. railroads? Because railroads don't buy power. They buy availability. They buy tons moved per dollar. They buy something boring, called uptime. And this locomotive? It was a masterpiece. But it also created problems that don't show up on a spec sheet. Maintenance logistics, standardization headaches, and the one cost nobody talks about. What happens when your monster is down in the shop and your whole operation has to cover for it? In the next 10 minutes, I'll show you the real reason the biggest diesel didn't become the standard, and what that teaches us about how railroads actually make decisions. Alright, let's talk about the DD40AX, better known as the Centennial. Even the nickname sounds like something you'd put on a trophy. This thing wasn't just big, it was intentionally big. A statement piece, a rolling billboard that said, "We're Union Pacific, we move America." And on paper it looks unbeatable. 2 diesel engines in one frame, a horsepower number that, at the time, felt borderline ridiculous, and enough length that if you're standing next to it, your brain needs a second to accept what you're seeing. So why didn't every railroad in America line up to buy it? Why didn't it become the default for heavy freight? Why didn't the market say, "Yep, this is the future"? Because railroads don't live on paper. They live in dispatching, in winter, in hot summer grades, in crew rules, in shop backlogs, in parts inventories, in how many trains moved today, not how impressive the spec sheet looked. That's the real story. What railroads were actually trying to solve. To understand why the Centennial didn't take over, you have to understand what railroads were chasing in that era. They were trying to move more freight, faster, with fewer headaches. And by then, the industry was already learning a painful lesson. Horsepower is only useful if it shows up to work every day. Steam could be powerful, sure, but it could also be a maintenance lifestyle. Diesel promised something different. Push the button, go to work, come back, do it again tomorrow. So the game became reliability, standardization, and cost per ton mile, not largest machine wins. And that's where the Centennial runs into a problem. It is too special. Special is cool. Special is historic. Special is something rail fans love. But special is not what an operations department wants at 3 a.m. when something breaks. The reality? Railroads buy uptime, not horsepower. Let's make this simple. If you're a railroad, you have one question: how many tons can I move for the least total cost? Consistently. Not once. Not on a perfect day. Consistently. A locomotive that pulls like a beast but spends extra time in the shop is not a hero. It's a liability, because every hour it's down, you're not just losing that locomotive, you're losing the train plan built around it. You're burning crew hours, you're stacking delays, you're reshuffling power, you're creating knock-on effects across the network. This is why railroads obsess over 2 boring words: availability, utilization, and the Centennial challenged both. Reason number 1, standardization is the silent killer. Here's the first big reason it didn't take over: standardization. Railroads hate having one-offs, because one-offs multiply costs in ways that don't show up in the purchase price. Think about it. If you buy hundreds of the same locomotive model, you get an ecosystem: the same parts, the same training, the same troubleshooting habits, the same shop procedures, the same tools, the same everything. Your mechanics get faster because they've seen the same failure 100 times. Your parts department keeps fewer unique items on the shelf. Your downtime drops because the fix is familiar. Now flip that. If you run a locomotive that's effectively 2 engines in one body, you can't treat it like the rest of the fleet. It's bigger, it's heavier, it's different. And different creates friction in a system designed for repeatability. Even if the Centennial is reliable, and yes, it could do real work, it still adds complexity. And complexity is expensive. So railroads look at that and ask a cold question: how many problems does this solve? And how many new problems does it create? If the answer isn't overwhelmingly positive, they back away. Reason number 2, shop time. When it's down, it's really down. Now we get to the second reason, and this one is brutal: shop time. With a standard locomotive, if one unit goes down, you swap it. The consist changes, but the plan survives. You still move the freight. But with the Centennial, the whole point is concentrated power. When that unit goes down, you're not losing a locomotive. You're losing a lot of capability in one hit. And here's the part people forget. Maintenance isn't just repairs. Maintenance is scheduling. It's shop availability. It's parts lead time. It's the fact that the shop has a line. So if your monster needs attention, it's not always fixed tomorrow. Sometimes it's waiting. And waiting is where costs explode. Because while it waits, you still have trains to run. So what do? You break the power into multiple normal units. You pull from other assignments. You borrow from tomorrow's plan. You create a cascade. This is the hidden cost of big. Big concentrates risk. And in a network business, concentrated risk is scary. Now, to be fair, Union Pacific wasn't stupid. They knew exactly what they were doing. They weren't trying to create a product for everybody. They were solving their problem on their network, with their shops, their terrain, their operating style. And that's why the Centennial is such a perfect case study. It can be successful and still not be the future. Because the future in railroading is what scales easily. So here's the contradiction in one sentence. The Centennial is impressive because it's exceptional, and it didn't take over because railroads prefer what's repeatable. Next, we're going to talk about the third reason, the operational constraints that decide where a locomotive can actually live, and why more power can become more trouble. Reason number 3, operational constraints, where big becomes in the way. All right, let's hit reason number 3, operational constraints. This is the part that sounds boring, until you realize it decides everything. A locomotive doesn't live in a museum. It lives on a route. And routes have limits. Limits on curves, limits on clearances, limits on bridges, limits on yard tracks, limits on where you can turn, service, store, and inspect a unit. When you build something unusually long and unusually heavy, you are not just buying horsepower. You are buying a list of places where it can't go. And even if it can go there technically, the real question is, can it go there easily every day without slowing the whole system down? Because freight railroading is not about, can we do it? It's about, can we do it routinely? That's why standard locomotives win. They fit everywhere. They play nice with yards. They fit inside more shop tracks. They can be serviced in more locations. They can be swapped in and out without turning your operations into a puzzle. A giant special locomotive forces the railroad to be the flexible one. And railroads hate that. Now, the Centennial did work on the Union Pacific's territory. That's important. Union Pacific had routes, facilities, and operating patterns where that size made sense. But that's also the point. It made sense in a specific ecosystem, not across the whole industry. And the second you leave that ecosystem, the trade-offs start to pile up. The more power trap. Why 2 engines can mean 2 headaches. There's another angle here that people underestimate. 2 prime movers sounds like twice the power. But operationally, it can also mean twice the things that can demand attention. More systems, more components, more potential failure points, more diagnostic work. Even when nothing is broken, complexity adds time. And time is money. Here's how a railroad manager looks at it. If a standard fleet unit has a problem, we have procedures. We have stocked parts. We have mechanics who have seen it 100 times. We have a rhythm. When a special unit has a problem, it can pull you out of that rhythm. You can end up waiting for a part that isn't common in your system, or waiting for a specialist, or improvising. That improvising is what kills scale. And it's not because the Centennial was bad. It's because it was not simple enough to become the industry's default. That's the uncomfortable truth. In railroading, good isn't enough. It has to be good, and easy to replicate everywhere. So where did it shine? The Centennial's real job. Now, I don't want this video to turn into, haha, look, it failed, because that's not accurate. The Centennial did exactly what it was meant to do. It was built for big Western freight, long distances, heavy tonnage, mainline work where you want a lot of power in fewer units. And there's a reason fans still obsess over it. It looked like the future. It sounded like the future. It felt like the future. But the future in a business isn't what looks coolest. It's what wins when you buy 300 of them. Union Pacific didn't need the whole world to adopt it. Union Pacific needed it to perform in Union Pacific conditions. So, in the right place, at the right time, with the right support, it could be a very effective machine. But a machine can be effective and still not be the model that the industry copies. Because copying is about risk and repeatability. And the industry's answer was, we can get the same job done with multiple standard units with fewer special headaches. That's the core, the real lesson. Power doesn't win, systems win. So here's the lesson that connects this to basically every failed high-horsepower story in American railroading. Railroads don't buy horsepower, they buy systems. They buy a whole ecosystem that includes maintenance, parts, training, dispatching habits, facility layout, standard practices, and the ability to scale without surprises. The Centennial is what happens when you build a locomotive that wins a spec sheet contest, but still has to live inside a system that rewards boring consistency. That's also why you see the same theme in turbine locomotives. On paper, turbines looked insane. Massive power, a different kind of future. But the real world asked the same questions. What's the fuel cost? What's the maintenance reality? What happens when it's down? How do you support it at scale? And if you've watched my turbine video, you already know where that story goes. Same logic, different machine. And it's also why the steam to diesel shift wasn't just diesel is better. It was diesel fits the system better. Less specialized labor, more predictable availability, more repeatable operations, a business model that scales. So when you ask, why didn't the biggest diesel take over? The answer isn't that it wasn't strong enough. It was that strength isn't the deciding factor. Repeatability is. So here's my question for you. If you were running a railroad, what would you value more? A single monster unit that looks unstoppable, or a fleet of standard units that keep showing up day after day with fewer surprises? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you want the next two stories that connect perfectly to this one, go watch Why Turbine Locomotives Failed, because it's the same trap, just a different kind of power. And then watch Steam versus Diesel, the economics, because that video explains the business logic behind why the industry chose reliability over romance. Same theme, different era. I'll see you in the next one.